Well, hello, Pump people, and welcome to episode 3 of Pump You Up. In the first 2 episodes, we introduced the series, we did a teardown of the pump, and then I thought that I would get some parts, some bolts, in fact, to put the thing back together in something that made more sense. And the global supply chain got in my way, and I was able to order the bolts, but they haven't arrived yet. And in the meantime, I had a friend of my daughter's over who got a text from her father asking when I was going to be doing the next pump video, because he'd bought a pump on 24/7 on the internet, and he was looking for some directions. So now, Dale, this is for you. So what are we going to do here today? We're going to do some general cleanup, talk about mundane stuff like scraping off rust. We're going to replace the rubbers and the springs, which are the valves for the pump. We're going to put the water box back together. We're going to put the piston shaft packing in and reattach the water box, which means that the piston shaft will also go in. We'll replace the leathers on the piston so that it actually pumps water. And then finally, we'll install the pressure switch and the belt, and we'll test it. So let's go. So here's a mock-up of our water box on the bench. I've put one together out of spare parts. So that I could show us cleaning it up. So obviously that's where our piston came in, or comes through, and this is where our water comes in. This is where our water goes out, and this is the first set of valves here, and the second set of valves. Whoops. Here. So I wanted to give you that context before we started out. Now, take the thing apart, and we'll look at this first. Tighten it up in the vise. What you know is that this is a mess. It's got it's got 2 things. One, the obvious stuff, which is the rubber from the last seal. That's got to come off. Whoops, don't want it in there. And we're going to want to kind of clean that up. And we can scratch, and we can use the flat blade screwdriver to do that. The other thing we want to do is get down in there and scrape off the loose rust. I'd like to think that it was an easy thing to do, but it's just a hacking and pushing and scraping kind of exercise. And when you're done, of course, dump it. So, to kind of final clean this, because it's pretty good now, I usually just take just an axe file, but just a bastard file of some sort. And just take that down. You don't want it, you don't want to actually take the metal off, right, per se, but you would like to get all the rust that's in there. A little careful around these things. These things are actually brass, and they form the seal on the new rubbers. The rubber goes on there and a spring on the top. And we'll see that when we put the kit back together. So that's probably good enough. Getting in there is a little hard. We'll see if there's still some stuff there. And you'd like to think the casting is flat, and so is the file, but that may or may not be the case. And so, just be careful. A little bit is enough. So take that out. That's pretty much ready. Put the next piece in. You can see how I've cleaned it up. You can also see this was there when I got here. When I got a hold of it, you see it's been scraped. That's the word, scraped. A little hard. And you don't need to put it together tight in the vise. You're just giving it a little quick scrub. As long as you can see the rubber pattern there, and there's, I don't know what that is, some sort of buildup. As long as you can see the rubber pattern there, you've probably still got some rubber and you've got a little bit more work to do. That looks good. Flip it over for the other end. There's a mess, but no different than the other, than that. Remember, this was the same sort of mess when we started out, if not worse. So we can, again, scrape things out. You'll notice that in this piece, the stud's stuck in it, and the other piece, we had to thread it through. It just happens to be what it is. Sometimes they're both studs, sometimes they're both plugs or bolts or bolt-like, and I think it just happens to be whatever gives out first when you loosen it. All you're trying to do is make sure that when you put the new rubber seal on that it's going to be a solid seal. And the last piece, this one, and you can see, look at that rust. Look at that rust. And again, just a little bit of scraping. Take the file to that, just to, again, to flatten it out. And if you're going to work this way, then you've got this problem, but if you can come at it this way, it'll stay fairly flat. You'll get what you're looking for. And there, a little bit of pattern there. But again, it's rubber. When you tighten it up, it should seal up okay. All right, that's what I wanted to show you there. So I've talked about the kit and re-kitting it and a repair kit, and here it is. You can buy this online. Most places offer it. I can get it at a supply store close to me in a relatively small place, so you shouldn't have too much trouble. It'll be somewhere in your city. It must be good because it's made by Acme. Notice that it's for a Duro model K-255 B251, and if you'll recall, while I keep talking about a 255, in fact the pump I took apart and have now repainted, doesn't that look good, is a B251. So either it works for both of them. What's inside it, you ask? Well, all the stuff I've been talking about that you haven't seen or that we tore out. It's got two seals go between the top and the bottom of the water box. The other thing that's is a seal, an O-ring that goes in the end of the piston, where the piston pokes out in the water box. How about the rubber seals? There's 4 of these, 4 sets, and that's just a hunk of rubber with a hole in the end, a hole in the middle, and it sits over top of the brass valve, and then it has this brass spring on it. And then if I reach into the bag again, I get the little washer that parks on the top of that, and then cotter pin, which goes through a hole on the stud that's going to come up through the middle, and we twist that around to keep it all steady. Other than that, two other parts or sets of things. There are, I believe, 4 of these which are packing for the shaft. So these go around the shaft that comes out of the pump, and you can see that they're split so that they'll tighten up around the shaft. And like I say, I think there are 4 of those. And then lastly, the leathers that go on the piston, so that as the pump, there's the pump, as the pump shaft comes in and out, or out, in and out, and in and out, seal it up and force the water. So, that's what I've been talking about. Alright, here we are on the bench again. Recall that these look different because I painted them. So I scraped them down. I took rust remover to it. I took Varsol if you need to take the grease off. And I put 2 coats of just rust paint on it. And I made it blue because it's water. And I decided that the Tremclad, what is it? Medium blue gloss is the paint of choice for Pump You Up. I haven't asked for sponsorship. I'm not sure that they'd come good for it or not. In any case, here we are. Got that tightened up in the valve, or in the vise. I need some rubbers and springs for those. So here's the first one, and it just parks on there like that. And then we get a washer, put it over top, send our pin through, and really we just need your fingers. You could use a set of needle nose pliers if you wanted, but there you go. We're going to have a problem on our other one though. I'll show you. I noticed this just as I was getting ready to film. There's a hole for that to fit through, but it might very well, it's not centered, so it might very well give us some grief. So you're going to see the first of probably many atrocities being committed here, either by me or by the people who came before with the pumps. And I think what I'm going to do is really, I'm just going to take that off so it doesn't get lost on the floor. I'm going to split this. There. And I'm going to make it spread around that pin. You'll probably get a better view than I do of this. So tell me what I'm doing wrong. And so if I did that, and then I brought these together, and found a way to twist them maybe. Oh, this is live for a studio audience, so I don't know whether it's going to work yet. There, that's a mess, but it'll work. And then, just in case, let's twist the other end, and let's twist it the same way, or counter, I guess is what I'm looking for, just to make sure that that pin doesn't go anywhere. I'm going to tighten this up if I can, tighten up the twist. Because really you don't know how much room, or I haven't looked, you could figure it out, but you want to be sure that you haven't got this getting in the way of the housing that's coming up on top of it. Well, that's a good and dirty fix. So there we are. There's our first one done. Care for a second? Sure, why not? Alright. Well, this is not going to quite fit the way that I had envisioned for the camera. I wonder if I can take this out. No, I can't. Well, I just need it to sit still, right? And it'll do that. There. And you can still see those. Same thing again. Same thing again. Put those on. And pin. Push down. Put it through. Bring it around. Lock it so that it's not going anywhere. And then the other one. Last one. It's here and here. Here. There's the hole. Alright, so you've now seen me put these on 4 times. You may have some thoughts about that. Alright, now, notice that if we go to put this housing on top, we are going to discover that there's nothing to bolt it to. Remember that the last one, it's actually this, went down through as a bolt, right, and tightened up in here. That's problematic. Just hang on, I'll show you why. See this one? See how it's all broke out? That's because that bolt wasn't far enough down. And that's why I don't really like the whole idea of using that bolt. I want this down as far as it will possibly go. Now, this is a 4-inch piece. It doesn't look like the old one in that it's threaded all the way through. However, I was, as I said, for my faithful follower Dale, I thought I'd better get something put together so he could put his pump together. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to use some vice grips, but I'll put the vice grips in the middle so that I don't affect the thread that counts. And hopefully that'll be in tighter than the bolt I want to put in the top. So we have this, and we have this. And now we're ready to put this on. That housing goes on like that. And our stud sticks out through the top. And you adjust the camera ever so slightly. And now, whoops, that's too small. Isn't that interesting? And now, it's still too small. I haven't got a washer around here to fit it. Ah, there we go. No, still too small. I should have a washer for that. That's my problem. I'm going to have to find one. You don't need to watch me scour my whole workbench. But essentially that's going to park on there. And we're going to tighten that up. And we'll be done. We'll turn it over. We'll do the other end. See you in a minute. Okay, so the top end, what we were working on before, is tightened down. And in fact, I found some paint on the top, so I scratched that off to make sure I had a good seal. And now we're going to do exactly the same thing on the bottom. This one too, if I recall, came out as like a bolt because this was welded to it, because somebody thought that was a great idea. And I've pulled that out and replaced it with a better looking stud. We have our lower assembly. Ta-da! And you can see that those valves fit into that big space. And we put that together. Dale, I hope you're watching carefully. And now we use our 7/8 wrench, which I managed to misplace. I don't know how you misplace anything this big, but I have skills. And we're just going to tighten that up. And I wanted you to see me tighten this up because I wanted to remind you that it doesn't have to be as tight as you can possibly make it. We're not torquing things to spec here. Alright, so we have 2 steps left. The first one is to put the packing back, or to put the new packing in the back of the pump. The second thing is to put the new leathers in the on the piston. So we're going to put the packing in, we're going to put it on, attach the water box onto the piston, and then we're going to put the new leathers in. Here we go. So here's the old pump. Now, yes, I cheated. I put this back. I took this out so I could paint it, and I put it back in. It has nothing to do with what you need to do in order to replace things. So let's look at that a little more carefully. That sits there because it can't sit there because it can't crush anything, and it's got to press those things together. So that goes in there like that. See the graphite or the packing? That's got to come out. Just got a little screwdriver, and it comes out pretty easy peasy, really. If I was better at this, I would know whether I needed to replace it or whether it was fine. But given that we've got a whole kit, and I'm showing you how to do this, I thought it only made sense to show everything. So there's the first piece. I'm going to push that down a bit. We'll put the second one in. You can see how that will shrink or to fit into that space. There's 2. We'll push that down. At some point we're going to run out of packing, or room for the packing, and then we'll know that we're done. I suspect that it'll be 4 of them though, because that's what kit came with. Now, can I just push that down like that, I wonder? You know what? Looks like they give you an extra one, which makes sense because these things are pretty brittle. They break up pretty good. They're crumbly. So I'm going to put that back in, and as we tighten that up, that will force things together around that shaft. And so there we are. Now, how tight does that bit got to be? You know what? I really don't know. But we can find out because look at that. So remember that when I took this out, the piston, when I took the piston, the leathers out, the shaft came out with it. And I've taken the shaft off, and I've taken a pair of vice grips, and I've put it back in and tightened it up so that hopefully that doesn't come out again, because that's really a part we want to be dealing with. So put this on. Oh, like that. So that's tight enough, isn't it? I wonder if that's too tight. There. And we're on. Okay. There we go. Next up, pair of bolts. One goes in here. Now you remember that torque thing I keep complaining about? I did that once, and I broke off an ear. And you can't, that was when I discovered you can't braze them back on. These are cast, crappy casts, and they don't do well with that. There. Now, I need a wrench. will allow me to go find one because I didn't do my homework, I guess. Looks like 1/2 inch is the thing. Whoops. And again, you can see that space. We just want to close that up so that it's solid in there. One of the other things I'm going to do while you're not looking is that there are all kinds of little holes for accoutrements of some sort to be attached to the pump, and we don't need them. And in your circumstance, when you take the pump apart, whatever's on it is really what you want to have on it. So why, you're not going to take them off. I took them off because I wanted to paint it. Okay, so there's the water box attached again. Let me shift things and we'll talk about the piston. So remember that in there we had this. Actually, it was this way. And we pulled it out, and this is the leathers that supply the pressure to pump the water. And these leathers, I know you'll be surprised to discover, aren't in really good shape, this particular set. And so what we're going to do is replace those. That's part of the kit that we have. I'm going to take that and put it in the vise, because this comes apart in 2 pieces. So there's that. Oh, that didn't work, did it? Trying to do too much. No. Excuse me while I get down here. Take a look at what's going on. There. Now if I take my 7/8 wrench, put that on there, that will come apart. Oh, too early. I'm not really good left-handed, so let's try it this way. Turns out I'm not so good right-handed either. There it comes. Almost. There. Alright, now, what happens now? That should, if it were in good shape, would pull right off. But it's not. Put that there so don't lose it. Threaded. So we'll use that to our advantage. There's the top one off. We'll just pop that right down there. Take the washer off. We can take the other piece off. There. They can go in the garbage too. Alright. Now, you'll be surprised at just what you do to put this back together. You put this one on, like that, facing the cup facing out. I'm going to put that back on. Then we're going to reach down onto the floor and get the one that fell. Don't you hate it when that happens? Oh, where do you suppose that went to? Okay, so a couple of minutes later, and I've managed to drag this cup out from underneath the workbench where I dropped it. we pop that there on there, in there. Screw this back together. Maybe that's a better shot. You don't need to see the top of my hand all night. Getting close. Getting close. Well, this is going to take two hands, but you know what I'm going to do. So I'm going to finish this job up and come back to you. Hey, I got it done. So now I'm going to take this, and recall the one we took it out, we grabbed it with a pair of pliers. So we're going to try and put it back in with a pair of pliers, like that, like this. I have backed off the rod so that it doesn't complicate things. Once we get in, and I'm just gently pushing it in. Once we get it in, my hope is that I can push it forward, the rod forward, and it'll find its way through that. Yep, through that hole. And, whoops. And indeed, it's most of the way there. Of course, the pliers are too thick. But I think, if you look carefully and imagine a little bit, you can see that rod coming through. If I put a pair of pliers on it, maybe we could make it come through. We'll suck it back, and then maybe we can push it. Maybe not. In any case, we're going to get that rod out through the end in a minute, and I'm going to need both hands again for this, and a little bit of space, and we'll be able to put a nut on the end of that. Might have to talk to that, but it'll come. It'll come. Give me a minute. There we go. I don't know how well this is going to work, because of course the piston's going to want to move. I'm just tapping the sides of that, or the corners, opposite corners of that square, because I don't want it to bind up. There we go. And you can see that that's like that. Now, what if I left that there? And I found a nut. Because I used to have one specifically for that. I don't think that one's too big. And I think this one's too big too. Yep. But this one, unfortunately, it'll rust. No. No. I'll come back once I've got a nut that works. Alright, did you miss me? So I've got a locking nut, and it's a machine thread, and that's what I was worried about when I was putting it on, as I was feeling it go and then bind, and that's a sure sign. So we're just going to put that in by hand, and then we're going to put a socket on it. There, that's tight enough. So now, we just got to cap that off. Guess what I have? I have a cap. But, and there's a little, that's a steel seal. We could put a rubber seal that came in the kit though. Remember those? So we've got this that we can put around that. And then the idea was we'd be able to put that on. The rubber's apparently a little big. Whoop. There. Alrighty. And if we had a 1 inch, 1 1/4 inch, wrench. Truthfully, the box is almost gone. There's almost no threads on anything. So it may be that things get cross-threaded pretty easily. All right, there we go. Okay, so here we are. I've got things partly back together because you don't need to watch me turn a screwdriver all day. But I thought that it would be useful to show you. Here's the cap that goes on, like that. And on the inside, like I promised, there's a diagram. And the diagram, can you see it? Maybe not. Right here. It shows you how to wire up the terminals. And what it says is the motor goes in the middle, and then the power comes to the outside. So I have my black and whites going off to my motor. I have my ground down in here. I have my ground off my power coming in on here. And because I like to put terminals on things, these will never slip out. However, I might never get that bolt out of there. There it is. So all we do is wire white to white. See that relay right there, which is going to close when we need it. But if I've got the that round bit on the end, it's never going to fall out, is it? And you get all kinds of good places for metal on metal contact to make sure you got a good connection. There we go. This goes on this way. And that little piece here, these are the two adjusters. And again, instructions on the inside. One of them controls the cut in, and the other controls the amount of pressure you want on top of that cut in, if that makes any sense at all. There we go. And we have a pump. The only thing missing is I don't have an output spout because I can't find one. Once I have that in, then I'll take this over to my launder sink. This will be my input, my output. I'll fill the launder sink. We'll pump some water around, make sure it works. Alrighty. Alright, so what have we done here today? We had this water box in pieces, and we cleaned up the crap out of the inside. We put new springs and rubbers in the valves for the bottom and the middle. We bolted it back together. With the seals in between. We took it, we replaced the packing around the shaft that comes through. We put the water box on and attached it to the mechanical end, if you like. We replaced the leathers in the cylinder, put that in, and lastly we fixed up the wiring and reattached that to a pressure valve, or pressure valve. Recall that you need essentially we've replaced the kit in this, which I have here as a Duro K-255 B251 repair kit. And Google will probably do the rest of that for you. So Dale and everybody else, I hope I've been able to pump you up. Now you can find out how steady my hand is, how much water I end up with on the floor. The beautiful thing about an unfinished basement is that you can make a mess and nobody cares. And there we are. So now, we'll put this cap back in. Tighten it up. Again, we're not in the business of torquing hard. We just need to be kind of watertight. And now, plug it in, because everybody should have an electrical cord somewhere near their sink. And that is enough of that. One last thing I thought would be useful to know is at the end of the season, and me right now, I want to drain this pump down so that I can put it away and not have to worry about water sitting in it. And if it was outside this time of the year in my climate, it would be frozen and the case would be cracked and I'd have no pump. So here's what we do. Take your prime plug out of the top there, and then underneath there's a drain plug. I'm not going to hold the camera under there while I pull it out, but well, maybe I can. That'll drain the water out. And now if I run the pump for a minute, I should end up with taking the hose out. There, that causes it to do things. So now the water supply's cut off. Plug it in, let it pump for a minute. You can see that we've got water down there that's going to disappear soon. And when that stops, then the pump is good to put away. See ya.